Now, of course, the conversations around renewable energy are gaining momentum. Can we firmly say what's at stake at this particular point?
Yeah, absolutely. I think energy access is a policy priority for the UN, for AFDB, for governments all across sub-Saharan Africa, because if you look at the global population, 75% of those still without access are here in sub-Saharan Africa.
Right.
And 80% of those are living in rural communities. So when we're talking about energy access in Africa, fundamentally, we're talking about rural electrification. I think that's a major challenge because, or major opportunity rather, because when we think about rural communities, we're also talking about agrarian communities.
Right.
And so what power and access to power unlocks is not just the fact that it's a basic human right, but it really unlocks all of this opportunity for rural economic activity. So I think that's what's really at stake. It's not just the access, it's all of the things that it unlocks as well.
Right, of course, we've seen the targets by the World Bank. 2050, we need to make sure that we have all these clean energy alternatives running things, right?
Yes.
Does Africa have the capacity to do this?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that, back on the topic of rural electrification, what you're seeing now is governments alongside and coupled with these standard grid extension approaches to delivering rural energy access are starting to leverage the opportunities that are offered by decentralized renewable energy technologies. So now we're seeing a wave of solar home systems, hydro-based microgrids, solar lanterns, distributed storage.
Right.
So you might have heard of these as off-grid technologies.
Right.
They're oftentimes called distributed technologies or decentralized technologies, and they're really taking off across the continent. There are a number of barriers, however, and I think that those are the kinds of things that we really need to think about addressing if we're really going to see this sort of, explosion of clean rural electricity across the continent.
Who foots the bill particularly? We know, for example, in rural communities, the largest bit has been the initial cost to set up.
Yes, absolutely. Spot on. That's usually the biggest cost, right, is the upfront capital cost,
right.
or to the consumer, it's the connection cost. So right now we're seeing a lot of subsidy coming into the space from major donors like the World Bank, IFC, AFDB as well. A lot of international donor organizations are also supporting. So there's a lot of finance in the space to help bring down that upfront cost for the consumer.